Okay, this is lesson 1 continued. So what we're talking about now is equations. So equations are mathematical statements where two expressions are set equal to each other, and they're only true for specific values of the variable. So for this part of the course, we only have two types of equations that we solve. Okay, so for linear equations, solve means to isolate the variable, right? So for example, if you have 2x equals 4, we know that x equals 2. Okay, so we just isolate the variable and it's solved. For quadratic equations, solving is a little more complicated. We have to find our roots, right? Or our x-intercepts, or zeros, whatever you want to call them. And we can do that by two methods. We can either factor or we can use the quadratic formula. When we solve quadratic equations, there's three things that could happen. We could try and solve it and end up getting no real roots, right? So we can't actually get a real answer. All that means is that when we're talking about our quadratic, our parabola, it means it doesn't touch the x-axis. So that's fine, it just means our parabola doesn't have any roots, so there's no real solutions. The second thing that could happen is you could have only one answer, right? So if the vertex is on the x-axis, it's only touching the x-axis once, so there's only one solution. You're only going to get one answer for x. The most common thing that can happen is getting two distinct real roots, so two solutions, which means you're going to have two answers. So you're going to have x equals and x equals when you solve. So just a reminder, the two methods are factoring, which is what we went over in part 1 of the video. And if you can't factor, you can use the quadratic formula. So I wrote it out here. Okay, x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac, and then all divided by 2a. The most important thing is that you have to put your quadratic equation into standard form before you can solve. So if it's not like this, if everything's not on the same side, okay, and one side is not equal to 0, it will not work. So you absolutely have to have all of your terms on one side and 0 on the other side. We're going to do an example using factoring quadratic formula to solve for x. Okay, so here's our two examples. In the first example, we have to move negative x back to the left side here, so it looks like it's in standard form. So I have x squared plus x, okay, because I'm adding x to both sides, and minus 30. Okay, so we have to factor this. It's a simple trinomial. We have to find two numbers that add to the middle term and multiply to the last term. So two numbers that add to 1 and multiply to negative 30. Okay, so if that means you want to do that on the side, okay, or you can do it in your head, right, if you're good at finding factors in your head. So two numbers that multiply to negative 30 and add to positive 1 would be positive 6 and negative 5. Okay, because it's a simple trinomial, we can write that right away. X plus 6, x minus 5 equals 0. And then because the question says solve, we have to actually solve for x. So we take each bracket, set it equal to 0, and isolate x. So in this case, x is negative 6, and x is also positive 5. Okay, so we have two answers. So our two x values are negative 6 and positive 5. In the second example, we have to move the 10 to the left side so that it's equal to 0. So we have 3t squared plus 13t minus 10 equals 0. Okay, so you check if you can factor. So two numbers that add to 13 and multiply to negative 30. So that would be, if you want to write your chart again, okay, remember it's not negative 10, it's 3 times negative 10, so negative 30. So this is going to be 15 and negative 2. Okay, because it's a complex trinomial, we're going to factor by decomposition. So we split up our middle term into 15t and negative 2t. Okay, we then factor by grouping. So we common factor the first two terms. So our common factor is 3t, and we're left with t plus 5. And the second half here, the greatest common factor is negative 2, and we're left with t plus 5. Okay, so our final factored form is t plus 5 and 3t minus 2. You'll notice the whole way down we're writing equals 0. Okay, you can't have double equal signs. Some people like to write equals on the left here, just out of bad habit. So make sure you only have one equal sign in your equation. And the last step is to solve for t. So we set each bracket equal to 0. So our first t value is negative 5. And the second t value is positive 2 over 3. Okay, so solving by factoring, solve, or factor first, and then solve for x at the end.